Welcome to the Million Pound Mission Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Shively, the PhD, the previously heavy dude, and I'm on a 1 million pound mission. Now, I've personally lost over 100 pounds, and I've applied what I've learned from my own transformation journey to help my hometown clients lose over 35,000 pounds in just 5 years. Now I'm on a mission to produce over 1 million pounds of results by delivering my best weekly tips, motivation, inspirational stories, and transformation strategies so that you can gain clarity about what you need to do to reach your goals and give you the confidence to take action. And the perfect time to start taking action is right now. So let's do this. All right, my friends, it's that time again. Welcome to another episode of the Million Pound Mission Podcast, episode 65. This one is reclaiming control of your weekly schedule with my special guest, Shannon Waller. How's it going out there, everybody? It's your buddy, the PhD, the previously heavy dude, Adam Shively. I'm psyched as always to be here. We've got a great show this week, and I can't wait to jump in. But first, I've got to make somebody podcast famous. Let's see who it is this week with my iTunes review and shout out of the week. This week, it's going out to Trailer Lavorne. And this is what Trailer has to say. This is a fabulous show that isn't just for people wanting to lose weight. Great tips for living a more focused and disciplined life. Keep up the great work. Trailer, thank you so much for taking the time to leave a review on iTunes. If you guys want to be the next person that becomes podcast famous, just hop onto iTunes, leave a rating and review. And you never know, you may be that special person on the next episode. Trailer, I really appreciate you supporting the show. Speaking of supporting the show, here's how you can support me, the PhD, and the Million Pound Mission this week. I just launched a new line of Million Pound Mission podcast apparel, gear. I've got tank tops, I've got t-shirts, I've got hoodies, and I've got a sweet new logo. Special shout out to my graphic designer, Melissa Page. She rocked it with the logo. It's awesome. You guys are going to want to check it out. Just head on over to the main website, www.transformationcoach.me. Right at the top, you're going to see the apparel button. Click on that. You can check it out. Support the show. All right, now that I've asked you to support the show, I've got to give you something back, right? It's not just enough to deliver amazing and inspirational knowledge every week. I've got to give you something for free. So now is a little segment that we call the PhD gives you something for free. And this week, I've got a free tool that is very much in line with the topic that we are discussing. I've actually covered this in a couple different podcast episodes, but it's a free tool that I developed that I call the Lifestyle Audit. The Lifestyle Audit is all about reclaiming control over your time, your schedule, and how you live your life and where you're spending the most time. So you can find the links to download that in both the blog, just by going to transformationcoach.me/blog. You'll see episode 65 in there, and check that out. Or in the show notes in iTunes or SoundCloud, you'll be able to see the show notes and have the downloadable, clickable link right there for the Lifestyle Audit tool. All right, so how many of you guys out there have ever felt like your schedule is just eating you alive? Just you go through day after day, and it seems like less time. It's just happening quicker and quicker and quicker. Less positive things are happening. More stress is being inserted into your daily schedule. More work, less play, less you time, less time for your kids, for the people that actually you care about, that you want to spend time with. There's less of that. Less passion for your career, probably. So I feel like a lot of those things, or maybe all those things, impact all of us. I know I've been there 100%. And you've heard me talk about a program called Strategic Coach before, and I've had Dan Sullivan, the founder of Strategic Coach, on the show a few episodes back. And I've got another one of the coaches coming on, and her name is Shannon Waller. So let's tell you a little bit about Shannon's background, and then we're going to dive into this amazing episode. So Shannon is a super passionate expert on entrepreneurial teams, and she's been with Strategic Coach since 1991. She's the creator of the Entrepreneurial Team Program, which is a parallel program for team members of the Strategic Coach clients, and that focuses on fostering a winning entrepreneurial attitude in its participants. Now, she's also a key decision maker at Strategic Coach and a recognized entrepreneurial team expert. Now, Shannon is also a sought-after speaker, presenter, and coach. On top of that, she's also Colby certified and the 2015 recipient of the Colby Professional Award for Individual Leadership in Building Cognitive Excellence. Now, she's also co-authored the best-selling book, Unique Ability 2.0 Discovery, and she's also written 2 books about entrepreneurial team success. Both these books are really, really good. The first one is the Team Success Handbook, and the second one is called Multiplication by Subtraction. I'm going to put links to both of those in the blog and the show notes so that you guys can check those out. Really, really, really good. So we're going to bring Shannon on, and her and I have a really great discussion where we cover things like how to use a special 3-category time system to reclaim control over your weekly schedule. This is the exact time system that I've been implementing into my life for the last 5 years that took me from totally stressed out and overworked myself to the point where I end up in the hospital from overwork, stress, and passing out, to now I feel like I'm in control of my time, and I'm working in my areas of what she refers to as unique ability. So that's an important part of the discussion. We also talk about how to pull this off both as a business owner or as an employee. I feel like that's a very important part about this conversation, is that it's not just about people that own a business and how to control your time. I know I've got a lot of business owners out there that listen to the show, so shout out to you, but also people that work for an entrepreneur or work in a team setting where they work for somebody else's company, and how you can reclaim control over your time. Now, we also talk about why claiming your free days, how she defines them. Now, a free day, I gotta throw this in there. We're not talking about cheat days, like cheating on your diet, free from your diet. I'm talking about free days from work, zero work emails, zero work phone calls, zero work thinking, and why claiming your free days first is so important, where you know when those are going to happen and you hold on to them tight and you don't give them up. All right. Then we also talk about how to start implementing all of this right away and start seeing positive results. Hopefully you're as fired up as I am. Without further ado, the amazing Shannon Waller. All right, my friends, it is time to get down to business. I have a great show lined up for you today. As you all know, I've got a pretty large group of people that I'm exposed to, both with my clients in my hometown and my gym, and with all of you lucky people that I get to interact with online through the podcast, the blog, the online courses. And I notice trends, and that's one of the things I always try to bring to our show. When I see an issue, when I see a danger zone or a problem that's holding a lot of people back, I try to either address it myself, or as we were doing this week, I try to bring in the big guns to address the issue. And one thing I've been noticing that is really tripping people up is just time efficiency, but also just how they are using their daily work time. And it seems like so many of my clients are just working harder and longer and more hours, and they're just sucking the life out of their life. So as many of you know, as I've talked about in the past, I've been a part of a program called the Strategic Coach for the past now 6 years, and it has totally revamped how I apply time management. I even hate to call it a time management system, but today, finally, I've brought on one of my heroes as far as somebody that's really impacted my life with their advice and their strategies. I've got Shannon Waller on the call with me, and she is going to bring some knowledge about their entrepreneurial time system and how we can reclaim a little bit of that time for ourselves. And Shannon has been with the program since the early 90s, so she really knows what she's talking about. She's one of their directors, one of their coaches, and she does weekly and monthly calls that I am tuning into every single time. So I'm fired up about this. Shannon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'm delighted to be here.
All right. So first, I want you to kind of talk about your story, because I know that you have a story of kind of running out of daylight and how things shifted once you got into this new way of thinking about your time. So let's just start there. Why don't we go ahead and start with your story?
Awesome. So I've been with Strategic Coach, as you mentioned, since early 90s, which specifically was 1991. And when I've had a very, full career, I was super focused. I was one of those people who kind of throws everything into it. In my first role with another company, I had the highest billable hours in that. And, was paid fairly well for it. So, but I would put in a ridiculous number of hours. And I met someone who is now my husband, but he asked me a really, really important question because I was working so much. He said, do you have a life? And I paused. And it's one of those questions, if you can't say yes in the first 3 seconds, the answer is automatically no. And my answer was no. So I was really, really good at working. I threw my whole self into it. And, a lot of people listening can relate to this. I was very passionate about what I did, but that was it. I was so one-dimensional, and it was a bit ridiculous. So anyway, this gentleman by the name of Bruce stuck with me. I started to get a life because it was kind of an embarrassing thing to have to admit that I didn't have really anything else that I would be that devoted to. And we just coming up on being married we just passed being married for over 21 years. So that worked out well. But it was a really interesting, thank you, premise. And I realized my own way of thinking about it, my own desire to be successful, and that was where my confidence, lay, was that I didn't have very many options. And then when I joined Strategic Coach in 1991, and the first concept we learned with the entrepreneurial time system is that of free days. And free days, by definition, is 24 hours, midnight to midnight, not noon to noon, as a lot of people try and negotiate with me about, but 24 hours, midnight to midnight, during which you do absolutely no work. No checking your email, no checking text, no checking your phone, not because you're bored, but it's the whole point here is rejuvenation, to make oneself young again. Now, it sounds wonderful. It sounds like, oh, great, I get to spend time with my family, with myself, with my community, play sports, go shopping, do a spa, whatever is exciting. However, if you don't know what to do, it's kind of torture. And if you don't have a quote-unquote life, you can't really figure out what to do, which is a bit, in my case, it was a bit lame, but I finally figured it out. And it's kind of interesting. So we can end up being these kind of one-dimensional creatures. So it really kicked in with learning how to take free days. And for a while, I had to really work at it. It was not something that was, we call factory installed with me. And so I really had to ask myself, okay, what else am I interested in? What else can I do? Who do I want to spend time with that wasn't work related? And what was interesting is when I was a coach, this is one of the premises in working with our clientele, which are all entrepreneurs, is that the more time people take off, the more creative and successful they become when they're back at work, because they have to become more focused. So free days is only one type of our days. The other two types of days are focus and buffer. Do you want me to jump into those?
Yes, please.
Okay, awesome. So if you take your whole year, you want to look at 365 days, and we're suggesting that you chunk off, the parts that are going to be free. Now, if you're working for someone else, that's going to hopefully be weekends and your vacations, but it means actually taking them, not just pretend to take them. And so that's, most people have there's 52 weekends, so it's 104 days, another 8 to 10 statutory holidays, depending on where you live. So let's say it's 114. And then if you take another 2-3 weeks, that's going to be another 10 to 15 days. So most people are at 124 to 129, 130 free days, but you have to actually take them. But then it's like, okay, well, what do you do with the rest of your time? And what's interesting when working with business owners, by the way, most business owners don't actually give themselves that much time off. Most of their teams take off more time than the owners do, is you need to produce those results in less time, which means you have to become more focused. And what's great about that is you learn what to say yes to, and more importantly, what to say no to. So our definition of a focus day is basically an average work day, and it's 80% of your time focused on your top 3 money-making activities. Now, if you're in control of all of your time and activities, that's not an impossible thing to do. However, if someone else is in charge of it, you can still have what's called focus time. And this is what I coach in our team programs. And what that's about is really figuring out what am I doing that produces the results? What are people counting on me for? If I don't do them, bad things happen. Is another way that I like to look at that. So focus time is really important. And then what a lot of people do not give themselves enough of is what's called buffer. And buffer is when you get your own act in gear, in order. You get your own things sorted. You make your to-do list. You check things off when they're done. You send that email instead of leaving it in drafts. You just kind of organize yourself so that you can be productive. It's when you plan for really great focus time and for really great free days. And when you work this whole system together, one of the big things that goes away and which causes people a lot of stress is guilt. I actually had someone sign up for the program one time, and I asked him what he wanted to get out of it, and he said, no more guilt. Thought, oh, that's an interesting answer. Because every time he was with his kids, he thought he should be with his clients. Every time he was with his clients, he was worried about a team issue. And with his team, he felt he should have been with his clients or his family. He just never he was never present with what he was doing, with who he was doing it with. And it was really tearing at him. And we talk about multitasking, kind of really bad idea, because people can tell when we're physically present but mentally elsewhere. And the time system of free, focus, and buffer really allows people to be very, very present and intentional about what results they're producing with each of those different time frames. And then again, no guilt when they're not doing something else. They know that that's exactly what they're supposed to be doing. If it's making money, great. If it is rejuvenating, that's great too. If they're making themselves more capable and cleaning up messes on buffer days and putting in place, delegations, fabulous. They don't have to feel any concern or worry that something else is being missed. So that, in essence, is the entrepreneurial time system.
I think you really nailed it with the guilt. I see that happen with my clients so much, where they aren't present, where they feel guilty about coming to work out because they should be working, or they should be doing other things, and it messes with us so much, and it eats away at us. And that's something that I've noticed since I've been following this system. So I talk about this all the time, and I talk about my free days enough on the podcast and with my live casting on Facebook that people will call me out. If they see me, they know I take Fridays and Saturdays off. And if they see me on social media, they'll be like, hey, isn't this your free day? And they will call me out on it. So it's awesome that other people are realizing that. So, one of the things I've really noticed since I've been implementing this over the last 6 years is the efficiency. And something interesting happened the last month. I had a team member here at my gym that accepted a position with another company, and we couldn't figure out who was going to teach the Saturday class. So I had to step up. I know one of the coaches at Strategic Coach, Colleen, talks about everybody has to do dishes sometimes. So it was my turn to do some dishes. And so I stepped up to teach the Saturday class. I turned Saturday into a work day. And by having that one less free day each week, the last 3 weeks were so unfocused, unorganized, less efficient. And you would think it'd be the opposite because I'm adding an extra work day. I'd be getting more done. I feel like I got so much less done by not having that extra day of rejuvenation. So it's so critical. One of the things I love about Strategic Coach is that they focus on the free days first, get those booked out first so that you have that time to just reboot and rejuvenate so that, you aren't just working yourself into an early grave. And I've talked about that before too. My job before I found Strategic Coach, my job had put me in the hospital 3 different times from anxiety attacks, passing out from lack of sleep, all that stuff. So I'm a real life example of what this program can do. So Shannon, maybe talk about some examples of what you see, kind of like my story, but other people's stories where you've seen people really kind of turn it around from, they were basically working themselves into that early grave versus now they're really, enjoying themselves. They're actually more efficient by taking more time off.
Oh, there's so many stories. They're all crowding my brain at the same time. Let me talk about one client who really first of all, he's a workaholic. And most people, it's kind of the drug. People get off on that. And it's really interesting. He had a bit of a wake-up call with regard to his health when he went to get kind of an assessment. And he's not that much older than I am, but was overweight. And I saw him lately because he had the kind of a wake-up call. And he also was someone, as I said, who had trouble taking time off. Well, now his time off is devoted, in his case, to his grandchildren. Also, he just ran a 5K. And he's probably awesome. 40 pounds slimmer. So he now had a reason to, really motivate himself. And he was someone who felt really disconnected between his head and his heart. So he would intellectually make a decision, but physically it would cost him, but he just wouldn't pay attention to that. And so what I'm seeing now is he's just much more integrated as a human being. He's calmer. I was talking to some of his family with whom he works, and he's calmer. He's less anxious, like a lot less anxious. He listens better. He's much easier to work with. He focuses on what he's supposed to be doing and doesn't dabble into other people's jobs. He's just a much better owner. He's a much better team member. He's a much better playmate. he's just a different human being because he's two things. One is, as you talk about with your audience all the time, the importance of health and well-being. But he had the time to do it. He wasn't like, I'm too busy, I have to put this off. He literally would have gone to an early grave. So that's one example that comes to mind. One of the things that's interesting at Coach is that because of the time system, people's families are positively impacted. We get letters from our clients' children. And one of them said, "Thank you for giving me my dad back."
That's awesome.
Which was really touching. And because she remembers being in the playground one time and asking him to go push her on the swing, which he did. At the same time, he's actually pushing with one hand and has his smartphone in the other. And then she asked him, "Daddy, don't you like me?" He goes, "What do you mean, honey? Of course I like you. I love you." She goes, "Yes, but you never pay attention to me." Oh my gosh, just stabbed him through the heart. But he didn't realize the message he was sending because he was so anxious about his business that he wasn't actually being present, even though he was doing a free day activity with his daughter. So he puts the phone away, and it's interesting to hear him tell the story. And we know his daughter now too, who's grown up. And just that moment changed everything for him. So he became much more present. He actually started taking free days. His family life got immeasurably better. And what's also fun, so we're talking about some of the personal benefits, is people's businesses get better. One of the big challenges for people is that we think we have to be all things to everybody, our team, everyone from the banker to your clients, to your team, to your spouse, your kids, and we're overextended. And we don't delegate. We don't put a team in place. We don't automate. We don't invest in future capabilities. And what people find is that, one of our little monikers is that you can make a lot more in a lot less time. And that's really powerful. And people think, oh, well, I'll just work harder. It's like, no, that actually isn't how you make more money. You make more money by getting smarter. And you can't get smarter if you are overextended all the time. Dan has a neat quote, Adam, that I think you're like, Dan Sullivan, co-founder of Strategic Coach. He said, "A too tightly scheduled entrepreneur cannot transform." I thought you would like that word.
Yes.
Because there's simply no room. There's no space. There's no room for no opportunities. A new opportunity looks like a bother because you don't have the mental space to actually take it in and think about how you could pull it off. And so I think, in terms of how much people's personal lives get better with themselves, and which obviously translates to their health, what happens is people delegate better. They have their clearer minds. They're focused on doing what they actually love to do and do best in the business rather than everything. And they end up making a lot more financially as a result of that increased clarity and focus. As you talked about, having fewer free days during the week, you actually, by working longer, you became a lot less efficient. You became a lot more tired. Instead of sprinting, our bodies ramp it down. We pace ourselves. Instead of 100% output, we have to give out 80 because we have to last for the long haul. Human beings are not built that way. Computers are. Human beings are built to sprint, to produce a result, and then to rest. That's high intensity interval training. So that's, do your business, do your work exactly the same way. If we make it a marathon, some of us will fall over. That would be my take on it.
So I guess the next question is, it seems like it's kind of a no-brainer for an entrepreneur to do this. It's worked so well for me. But what about the people who work for that entrepreneur or work in teams? I know that you work hands-on with a lot of entrepreneurial teams. So if, let's say, somebody is putting in, 50, 60 hours a week and works for a company, how does that person go about, bridging that gap, maybe even approaching their boss about getting free days and things like that? Or how do you help team members implement this system?
My favorite question. So first of all, I would have people analyze what's actually going on, because a lot of people are stressed, but they don't actually know why about their time. And it's very, very, very useful to lay the lens of free focus and buffer over people's calendars. I was actually coaching this on a weekly planning call this morning. And that is, so take last week's printout of your calendar and color code it. Color code it for our definition of free. So fun stuff, could be a yoga class, could be your weekend, could be a fitness class, whatever it was, and where you were not working. So that would be say pink, for example, then color the activities that were actually really results producing, where people are counting on you to produce something, and color that in, say, green, if you're like the money color. And then the buffer stuff where it was kind of in between, not particularly intentional use of time, or better yet, when you're making your own to-do list, checking them off, doing that kind of follow-up stuff for yourself. When you're following up on behalf of someone else, I would call that focus. But when you're getting yourself organized, getting things sorted, then that would be what I would call your personal buffer time. And then just see how it plays out. And I'll often have people track it for 2 to 3 weeks. It's very fun to take your next week's calendar, divide each day into, say, 9 or 10 boxes, depending on how many hours you tend to work, and then start to color in how your week plays out. Well, is this a focus activity or a buffer activity? And by the way, that's one of the conversations you might want to have with your manager, direct supervisor, whoever that is. Say, what is most important? I just want to clarify. What is most important in your mind for me to be doing? Because I might think it's this, but you might think it's that. And I want to make sure we're on the same page. Most managers will go, oh, thanks for clarifying, not wonder what you were thinking about. So that's actually a very positive question to ask. And then start to see how the patterns work out. And what you'll find, most people will find, is that they can condense some of their focus activities. They can start putting them together. They can start having some protected focus time. Let me tell you a quick story. I was coaching an online team. And so I had a guy here, and then I had his manager, and they were both lived in very different cities. But this was a project that was scheduled to take, would take 2 months to complete. That was the overall timeline given everything else that was happening. So we had calls 2 weeks apart. And at the second, so we had this conversation on call number 1. 2 weeks later, we had the second call. And the guy said, oh, I finished that project. And his supervisor said, that wasn't due for another 6 weeks. And he goes, yeah, I know. But because I had some protected focus time, because that was one of the things I was coaching them on, he said, I got it done. And everyone was kind of
awesome.
In stunned silence. Basically, it was 2 to 3, I think it was 2 actually, 2-hour chunks, 4 hours. He powered through and got it done. It was when he kept being interrupted and doing other things and not having protected focus time that's what actually ended up taking the length. So when we can condense and focus, it may mean putting the do not disturb sign on your door or your phone, not checking. Please, everyone, turn off your email notifications. That is the worst thing for our attention spans ever. We have little signage in our office to have protected focus time, and you'll be amazed about how much you can produce. Our brains are incredibly smart. We have a lot going on. There's a lot of processing power there. And if we just let it do its job without interrupting it, it takes really good care of us and produces those results. And then you can also make sure, the other piece of coaching I do for team members is to make sure you give yourself time to get organized. Make your list. Spend 30 minutes in the morning. Come in early if you have to, and then spend the last 15 to 20 minutes closing out your day and planning for tomorrow. And then close your binder, close off your computer, and go home. And don't worry about it, to use my friend Kathy's expression. And then come in refreshed the next day. This constant stressing without actually taking action isn't doing any of us any good. It raises our cortisol level, has our body retain fat. None of it's good. But when you can really get your time and yourself mentally organized in terms of free focus and buffer, it's kind of amazing what will happen. And you'll find that you'll get your work done during the week, and you won't have to feel guilty about not working on the weekends because you got it done. So that's a lot of my coaching to team members, Adam.
And that's super helpful. I know that I've been taking furious notes with this. I know people at home are probably going to have to listen to this more than once. So I know a lot of you out there in podcast land are listening to this, and you're thinking, okay, well, where do I start? And as far as my own advice to you, since I've done so, my own schedule is set each week. And so I do a buffer day on a Monday. That's when I kind of set up my week. I do a focus day on a Tuesday. That's when I focus on creating new things or working on pushing a new project along. That's kind of my creative day. Then Wednesday, I have another buffer day. Thursday, I've got a buffer day. So that kind of is usually just following up on the project that I've created or something that I'm pushing along, and then kind of ending out the end of my 4-day stretch there on Thursday. Then I take Friday, Saturday to rejuvenate. Those are my free days. And then Sunday is actually a big day for me in the gym. I go if any of you follow me on Instagram, you see my Sweaty Sunday, my hashtag Sweaty Sunday post where I put highlights on my Instagram feed of all the clients I work with. I go 12 straight hours, and I put highlights of all the fun training and torture that I do. But so that's kind of how I structure my week, but it didn't start like that. My coach said, let's figure out how to take one free day. Let's just take one free day, block it off, like Shannon said, and just turn off and see what happens. And it was magic. I like Shannon's talked about, it made me think, okay, how do I set this up? What do I need to take care of before this so that I can do it? And then how do I set myself up for success that next day when I come back? So you immediately start getting more efficient. You start thinking ahead. You just get more productive with your thinking so that you actually can square away this 24-hour block where you can take for yourself. And I started thinking along the lines of, all right, from there, am I working so that I can live, or am I living to work? What am I doing right now? And I want to shift more towards that working to be able to live. And I know that's what Shannon coaches people on. That's what Strategic Coach is all about. And that's what we want to help you guys do. So, it's Shannon, do you have any other tips as far as other than, just booking that first free day? Like, what's the best way to get rolling with this process?
I love that. It's awesome coaching. And sometimes with a lot of clients, if you think about, we like to do things in quarters. So you think about the next quarter, next 13 weeks, and if you take one day off, that's 13 free days. And you may need to book yourself. Some people are not natural couch potatoes. And if you're workaholic, do not put yourself on the couch. Go and book yourself a full day. Go to Sweaty Sunday. That would be a really good thing to be doing. Book yourself in, because if you're used to being high energy and focused and producing results, just to go do nothing looks like torture, not the productive kind. So I think it's really important to know what kind of a personality type you have, and then to serve that and to take care of it. Don't just expect yourself to just turn off and be super chill. That's not going to happen. But replace it with other activities. By the way, the world, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of really fun and interesting stuff out there if you need to look up to see it. And then with a lot of our clients, I'll say, okay, once you get that down for 90 days, then try one week to the next, one week to the next. And like you, I don't really care when they are. I have a client who, kind of works Wednesdays. Mondays is a cycling day. That's how he rolls. And so whatever pattern works for you doesn't really matter. It's just what works to do your most productivity. And then again, get really, really, really clear on your focus activities would be point number 2. And with focus activities, they tend to be about people, relationships, what's most important for you to produce with people. Like I work with a lot of team leaders, but I also work with a lot of assistants. And I tell them, make your entrepreneur, make your business owner one of your focus activities. Anything whatsoever to do with him or her, make that a focus activity, and they go, oh, good. Then they'll stop being an interruption. I'm like, exactly. They'll appreciate that. But get really clear on that, but also get really clear on what kind of thinking work do you need to do. So there's both the relationship stuff, and I love in the creativity stuff, and you have a whole day designated to that on your Mondays. And I love that your Tuesdays, because you're actually focused on creating new things. And that's a very good way to use your time. So when you get really clear on what your focus activities are, and you've got some protected free days, you will be off and running. And with free days, it's a little bit, it's like a drug that I just need to have people experience once or twice, and they're hooked and they want more. Only it's a positive one, not a negative one. So a little bit of, once you get a little taste of the freedom that a free day gives you, you're hooked, as you were, Adam.
Yes. It is unbelievable. And then with the focus activities, that's a topic that I don't want to get too far into, because I want to be able to invite Shannon back for episode number 2 here. But we could go with the concept of unique ability has been a huge game changer for me, where there's a whole process. And just so you guys know, I'm going to put all kinds of great links to books, to Shannon's books, and her sister has co-written a few books as well that I'm going to put links to in the blog. So if you go to transformationcoach.me/blog/Shannon, I will have those in there along with all my notes from the show. But there's a great book. There's 2 great books on unique ability, discovering your unique talents. And through that process, I've been through both of them. I've been through all of the unique ability training inside of Strategic Coach, and they help you come up with your 3 talents that you are unique at. So with me, what I've come up with so far, and it's always kind of fine tuning and changing, is I like to see, analyze and find a danger zone, whether it's in my family life or with clients, a problem that exists. So I like to kind of dig those out. I like to create a solution for that, create a system around that solution, and then coach people up on it. So that's what I focus on Tuesdays, where, I'm always sending out surveys in my Facebook groups and things like that. What's your biggest transformation danger zone? What is really tripping you up? I take that, I try to think of a solution for that. I create a system around that, and then I coach you guys on that. So next time you kind of see that process unfolding, you can say, oh, yeah, I remember when he talked about this on the old podcast with Shannon. So, and again, I don't want to get too deep into that because that's worth an entire episode in itself. But just organizing your time in this way, it can seem a little bit overwhelming. And I'm up at my workshop every month interacting with other entrepreneurs that are doing this time system. And some people, get it a lot sooner than others, but just start with that initial process. Book that first free day. Give yourself 24 hours to rejuvenate and turn the old entrepreneurial mind or that work mind off and rejuvenate. It's going to be a game changer for you. So, Shannon, I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to make sure that people know how to connect to you and dive into some of your information. I know you've got a couple of books out that I'll link in the show notes and in the blog. But what's the best way that people can connect with you, follow your story, or get involved with Strategic Coach?
Awesome. First of all, strategiccoach.com, lots of great resources, fabulous downloads, including a productivity download that has covers this and more that we've talked about. And I would love to come back and talk about unique ability, by the way. It's also one of my passions. Yes. And so that's one. And then one of my passions is what we call unique ability teamwork. And that is how people can work even more successfully together. And so I have a podcast too called the Team Success Podcast, where I talk about all the different elements of working better together from lots of different perspectives. And I have lots of author interviews. I'm a very passionate reader. And so I have a lot of fun talking, just like you, accessing experts whose thinking is very aligned and supportive of what we're up to. So that's a great thing to do as well. And yourteamsuccess.com is my website. And also check out uniqueability.com. It has a lot of great resources and videos, which are fun if you want to learn more about what you're talking about, Adam. And the last thing I want to say about the time system, and I appreciate what you said, is it's so great for us we can have big goals and big ambitions, but if we don't have the time to be creative or the mental energy to be creative because we're exhausted, we'll never do it. And that's when we start to get resigned and give up hope. I think that's not healthy for human beings, mentally or physically. And so when you can actually allocate the time to be rested, when you can allocate the time to be creative, we can achieve our goals and we can make the impact with other people that we want to make. So that's why this time system makes sense. It's not about just putting in your time and getting it done. It's about, just as you talked about, Adam, how can we make the biggest difference and be the creative selves we want to be? And I think, when you give yourself that focus day to be creative and you outline your process, which is fabulous, that's what's possible when people take this kind of freedom with the optimal time system.
Yeah, it's a game changer, but I'm telling you, it's, I always try to spur you into action on whatever we're talking about, but there may not be another topic of focus where you can just do this one simple thing for yourself, grab a hold of a free day and just change how your whole weekly schedule unfolds. Just trust me, this is one that I definitely want you to try. So within the next 24 hours, that's my challenge for you guys, is book a 24-hour free day for yourself. And before I let you guys go ahead,
I was just going to say, give yourself permission to take a 24-hour free day.
Yes. Give yourself that permission. So important. And Shannon, I just want to take one last second to acknowledge you and thank you. Your insight on this topic has changed my business, my personal life, my family life, my health. So it has been huge for me. So this is it's a huge honor for me to have you on here introducing this topic to my audience. Because I knew that I couldn't do it justice. And so I had to bring you on here to teach on this topic. I'm excited to have you back for another episode so we can talk about unique ability. But I just want to thank you for your time and then just thank you for the consistency with which you always are showing up. You are there on the weekly calls, the monthly calls, and it's making a huge difference. And I just want to be able to tell you that here one-to-one here on the podcast. And I just appreciate what you've done for me and for my business.
Oh, thank you so much, Adam. And you're more than welcome. And I am delighted to be able to share that. I hope this has as much an impact on other people as well. And thank you for all that you do. Your transformation, I can contribute 7 pounds, by the way, to your $1 million goal mission. But I'm excited about what you do. So I appreciate that we can collaborate and learn together.
That's awesome. So everybody, you've got your action step. You've got the knowledge. Now let's start taking a little bit of those just baby steps towards reclaiming some of your time. Remember, ask yourself the question. Sit there at the end of the podcast today and ask yourself that question. Am I living to work, or am I working so that I can live? All right. And then as always, we're going to get out there. I'm going to tell you to own it every meal, every workout, every day. We will see you on the next episode. One last thing before I let you go today. So many of you have been contacting me about taking action. Where's the best place to start? What program should I be on? So I went into the Transformation Lab and I created something new. It's my Transformed Academy, and registration is officially and finally open. All right, I'm loading up all my best workout protocols, all the follow-along workouts that you love, and developing more every month. I'm loading up all my best nutrition programs of all types. As I talk about, you need the right tool for the job, whether that's paleo, low carb, high carb, carb cycling, clean eating, keto, whatever. We've got the right tool, and we're going to teach you how to use that tool. Then we also have accountability groups, coaching calls with me, and so much more. The best part is the information never gets stale because I add new programs every 90 days. And the even better part, you're going to freak out when you see the price. Head on over to www.transformationcoach.me and check out the Transformed Academy.